Uh, Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, I think to this session, a very strong and positive background has already been given by Harry. I only wish that Suhail was not here. Otherwise, he would again remember his friend Shekhar. Uh, and, of course, say several things. Uh, Friends, ever since I've been here, since yesterday, I've been wondering whether I've actually come into the right kind of seminar because we are talking of everything but the energy. And I find everybody in such a trance that it will be really a challenge for this panel to bring people back to the bad and the ugly world of the harsh realities that the power sector is facing today. Uh, as you are aware, the background has already been given to you by my friend Mr. Harry. And what I will do is, rather than wasting any time, because we have only 5 minutes given for each speaker, I will straight away start from one of the power producers to put his point of view before the audience. And then we take on from there, and everybody would be able to contribute to the discussions. So I would first invite Mr. Sushil Maroo, if that's your name. Sushil Maroo, the MD and the CEO of Essar Power, to talk about this subject.
Yeah, thank you, sir. The real subject starting on power, and as you mentioned that the harsh realities what we are having and facing in power sector is about to unfold now. Probably I'll start with that. Okay. It's not chilly. Yes, looks like. Just down. Okay. I think it's, can you just check it again? It's not right. It's hanging. Okay. We start from the beginning of the private sector in energy, in power specifically. After the independence, private sector was virtually minimal, non-existent in power sector, but the demand of the power was growing in India, and so the public sector was not able to take care of it completely because of many reasons, and the deficit in power sector became immense. So the government finally brought in reforms and invited private sector to come and make investment, and that started with the generation first. And all the reforms that brought in since 1990, finally we see the result. In the 11th plan, private sector added 55% of the total capacity, and 12th plan, in the first 3 years, the generation capacity by private sector addition was 65%. And as we go along, there are many more power plants which have been set up and which are lying idle right now will aid to the power generation. The data are given over here. You can see the green line there on the other side. The private sector participation rising year after year since 2001. With the participation of private sector in the addition of the capacities, the government also realized that private sector can play a bigger role in reforms, in adding capacities, in bringing down the cost, and hence the consultation started. Consultation at the state level, consultation at the government level, consultation with planning commission, where they started inviting people and asking questions and taking their advices, their recommendations, that all started. So the role of the private sector was primarily recognized by the government and by various institutions in India. Now, as the role of the private sector increased, and Harry talked about the Supreme Court judgment and cancellation of coal mines, which happened last year, and many other issues that came up because with the reforms, there was a lack of integrated planning. So we have seen that the power plants coming up and a lot of problems about the fuel-related problems, the transmission-related problems, and distribution-related problems that compounded the problem in the private sector in a big way. First, going to assured fuel supply issue, as we have seen that the coal mines which were given by the government of India were cancelled by the Supreme Court since 1993. There are a large number of power plants which were planned specifically on a pithead basis to avoid the transportation of coal and reduce the pollution in the country. Those mines got cancelled. And there are many, many power plants which got stranded because they never planned to have the power plant based on transportation of coal. So with the cancellation of mines, now they have to obtain the fuel, either imported fuel through rail lines and the roads, which were non-existent, and that caused a serious problem. Another thing, that the coal linkage policy, where the companies which didn't get the coal mines, they were given the coal linkages, and there was no consistency in the coal linkage policy. Few companies were given the coal linkages based on some policies which got changed. Again, the another companies got on some different policy. So there was always a fight and a lot of running around in the government corridors to get the coal linkages. And the coal, once you get a coal linkage, the coal was also never given as what was promised. And that also brought down the generation of power, increased the cost, and virtually, rather than running a power plant, the companies were managing the fuel supply, how to get the fuel. And that created a lot of problem. But after the cancellation of the coal mine, which happened last year, the government of India came out and started auction of the coal mines. But the auctioning of the coal mines also got into legal tangles. So specifically for power, there were 6 mines for a captive, for a non-captive power plant. 6 mines were given, then it got into some of the companies have gone to the court on some of the conditions. And second auction of the coal mines got delayed. In the process, the coal mines which were given under auction were not became operational. The large number of issues came up, and the operational coal mines also got shut down, and it's taking a long time to produce coal. So the power plants which were based on those coal mines, again, or the coal mines acquired for those power plants, those were also producing less, and again, the same economic disadvantage coming up because of that. E-auction coal, again, coal is a big, big issue for power plant. E-auction coal, the prices were very high. Power plant sitting idle, e-auction coal is there, the price is so high that they cannot really generate power and sell in the market. And situation came up that one side, like on a western region, we have a surplus power available because it's all got bottled up because of the transmission problems. In the southern region, we have the power being sold at 7 rupees to 10 rupees. So it's all happened because of the lack of planning, lack of integrated planning in planning that the power plants should come up, how many power plants are coming up, how much generation capacity is coming up, and what are we doing for the transmission facilities, what are we doing for the distribution, and that all lack of this understanding created the problem. But anyway, the way forward for the fuel supply, like now we are talking of increasing the coal production. In fact, the coal production can be increased very easily if we have a railway infrastructure available, we have a road network available, we have a pollution, we have pollution approvals, we have environment approvals, land is available, so government is trying hard this time now. We have seen the result very recently. We hope that the target of the government to achieve the production of 1 billion ton is seriously followed up and achieved. Another problem that is there with the power plants and power companies is the open access. Even if you are able to get the coal, you are able to generate power, but you don't know what to do with that power because there is a complete bottleneck. You cannot just take out the power from the power plant and take it to the real consumers. After the last grid failure, there is a massive reduction in the capacities of transmission lines, and that has increased the problem to a great extent, because the line which was carrying a power of, say, 1,000 megawatt, after the grid failure, in many places in India, it has been reduced from 15% to 25%. So all of a sudden, the availability of transmission line got choked up, and many power plant got stranded. Problem again, as I talked about, western region, southern region, power available at some places, power is not being sold because there is no taker. Another side, southern region paying a heavy price for this. Then another where we have the uh, gentleman from RBI, Mr. Viswanathan, the problem that was from a banking side also we are facing. In fact, the problem, multiple problems the power plants are facing, power companies are facing these days, from the cancellation of coal mine, from non-availability of transmission lines, and delays because of the environment delays, because of pollution approval delays, because of coal mine cancellations. The problem that power companies are facing now, I give one example where, because of the delays, in some companies where the interest during construction, IDC was 500 crore was originally planned when the power plant construction started. Today is about 2,500 crore by the time it gets completed. And all this 2,000 crore cost rises because of delays in completion. Now we have some major issues with the RBI, which has been brought up to RBI a couple of times. So we have requested the government, like the completion time should be extended from 2 years to 3 years, sir. So at least the many power plants which are having a problem today, otherwise the banks will be forced to go for NPA. Once you put an NPA, the whole system gets chalked. New funding gets chalked. Power plant which have been completed 98%, 95%. The moment you declare them NPA, they just come to standstill position. Cost overrun financing, RBI says if it is more than 10% of the original project cost, it just cannot be done. The promoter will have to bring in money, companies will have to bring in equity, and in today's scenario where the bank is not ready to fund, getting additional equity beyond 10% is extremely difficult. So these two requests were made to RBI in the past, and I'll take this opportunity to make this request again, which the companies are facing. Then another problem after problem in the power sector. There are no bids coming in the market. There is a complete drought of bids. In the last 4 years, we have not seen many bids. The large number of power plants are ready, but there are no bids. In fact, very recently, in the last 6 months, we have seen some bids coming up. So that's also causing a lot of problem.
Can you just conclude?
Yes, I have to move fast. Stranded assets, rupee
Not
depreciation.
move fast,
repeated mine.
conclude.
Yeah,
I made a
okay,
request.
I'll have to just close. The 2 points I would like to mention here, since we have regulators here, the PPAs which were signed based on the captive mines given in the past were cancelled by the Supreme Court, and there are a large number of cases where the companies are having a problem where to go for those, what to do with those PPAs, because the power cannot be supplied at that price, a low price based on the captive mines given by the government earlier. Now they have to acquire a coal mine under auction. So either we change the PPA or we terminate the PPA. We have to take the right call, and there are a large number of cases on that account. Dispute resolution is one big thing which everyone is suffering. We have a large number of cases in CRCs, SCRCs, APTEL, all going up to Supreme Court. I'm taking a real problem. And distribution companies, for every request, just say no. So nothing is left out other than to go to SCRCs. Another thing that the PPA, the bids which are coming up now, coming up only on coal linkages. I see distribution companies have to think of coming up bids based on the captive coal also, because, and regulators also will have to push them to come up with the bids based on the captive coal, because the captive coal mines are given and they will be cheaper to consumers finally. Well, I'll move on to the last slide, where finally we are talking of the power cost going up, but for the India's economic growth, we need to reduce the tariff. We need to reduce the cost of production in the country to really make in India successful. We have a very high rate of interest of 12% to 15% for our power companies. We have a high transmission cost. We have inefficiencies in distribution network everywhere makes the energy cost very high. Uh, and that energy cost will not make the industrial sector viable in international competition. So we all have to work together to make really efficient power sector, reduction in the power tariff, and make the industry viable. Thank you very much.